Lando Calrissian was not originally created to be in Star Wars.
Welcome to Stubs with Jason. Hey people, welcome to Stubs with Jason. Just want to welcome you to this bonus episode of Stubs with Jason. This is a dedicated spoiler cast to the movie Transformers 1. Had such a good time and so much information was covered in my conversation with Trent on the base episode for this movie, Pessimist Prime. Just didn't have the heart to just cut it all out and leave it, never get it out there. So this is completely different content from the original pod, and we pretty much break the movie down beat by beat. Trent definitely does some deep dives on into some Transformers lore. That's pretty fun. Hopefully enjoy it. I think there's some great stuff in here. And then I threw a little something special at the end. It's something. It's probably about, I don't know, a little over 15 years old at this point in time. So, if you don't even want to listen to all this, maybe skip to the end and just listen to that. It's the last, 2 minutes or so. Anyway, hope you all enjoy. I know the movie season's slowing down a bit. Kind of got some craziness that's coming up here for a little while. Hoping to get a YouTube video out soon. I think Joker will probably be the next movie that I do a dedicated pod episode to. But we'll see. You never know. As always, keep your eyes out on, look out for YouTube Shorts where I do quick reviews. Watch for uploads on all the socials. I'm still not really good at any of that stuff. But anyway, hope you all enjoy this. And feel free to hit me up on the Stubs with Jason at gmail.com. If you got anything you want to share, give it the like, the subscribe, share, get this thing out there as much as you feel comfortable with. And hope you're all taking care of each other. Enjoy.
It has always gone by generations. Since the onset of the original,
it was
G1 is G1, G2. Different eras have different names. So It is kind of weird that they've chosen to say that this series, I assume it's going to be a series, is going to be it's in context. If you're going to reference it from a fan context, like, I don't know if this is going to be like the one series, it will be the one verse, it will be like, there's no like easy way, because there's Generation 1 or G1, and now there's this solid one, or like it's, I don't know, 2024, because, there's reboots that come up that they have to name the same thing, the Halloween remakes, You can't say that one is, there's original Halloween and then the remakes. Well, it's not a remake, it's a sequel-esque. So like, how do you put that into context when you're talking about it?
Well, you know what it also really worked for? Using that one Xbox.
You're right.
So maybe they were just like, who this really crushed it for?
Who's in charge of these naming conventions that are just like, oh yeah, that's easily brandable?
What's the number of this movie? It's the 9th movie. Well, it's a good, it's a great title for the 9th installment.
That's why you go with
Transformers 1.
The Xbox, and then the sequel to the Xbox is 360.
So next Transformers movie should be
and then the
Transformers
third is 1. Right, yeah. 720. Ollie. It's an Ollie.
We're in great shape. So they've got that all squared away.
I think that is probably the most direct reference, as it being a Generation 1-esque kind of inspired type of thing. It's not like saying there's only 3 Indiana Jones movies and that's it. They don't exist. There's no more that exists.
So you're saying that you have to accept this as part of the canon no matter what?
Well, it's a touchstone of other canons. Okay. So I'm more curious to hear what you had to say about it more than anything, and I'll just chime in with what I know, because there's things that obviously need clarification as far as I'm concerned. But what do you want to go into? Do you want to just talk about them? Do you want to talk about the format of it? Does the fact that it's an origin, do you have any context of like what happened during it in opposed to whether animated stuff or the live action stuff of like you knowing how the mythology was supposed to end up until this point? As far as you're concerned, does Optimus Prime just exist and you didn't know he had another name? You didn't know where he came from? Do you not know where their race came from?
Well, see, like, I would say I have a slight leg up. Like, I knew he had another name, right?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, there were other things. Like, I'm not a complete blank on this, but I'm not much further than that, right?
Okay, well, there's always like some general context, I guess.
Like, Orion Pax wasn't like a, you know what I mean? Like, that wasn't I knew that, you know what I mean? Although I can't remember Megatron's
well, there's
pre-name.
that's a reference in itself as well. There's always a reference for something. So like Bumblebee is not Bumblebee because he's B-127.
Right.
Because that is established in previous movies that he has a designation before he gets turned into a Volkswagen that makes sense that he's called Bumblebee.
Yeah.
D16 is Megatron's designation in this movie, but it's also we're going deep now. Here we go. You ready? So all the Japanese toys were okay. Transformers was not Transformers when it originally came to the US. It was begat by a series called Diaclone, which was a Japanese series of robots that changed into vehicles, but they didn't have sentience. They were basically like driven, essentially. They were robot suits, okay? So over there, when they ported it over here and the Hasbro decided to put its own story and narrative and characterization and stuff to it, well, when it went back to Japan as Transformers, there were some differences and changes and stuff. When they rolled out the toy line, they gave them number designations. So Optimus Prime, which goes by Convoy in the Japanese series, had like it was like C1 or C2 or whatever his number was, because they didn't call them Autobots and Decepticons over there. They were Cybertrons and Destrons is what they were. Megatron was D for the Alliance, and then 16 was his number. That's where that comes from. So using it in this context, which in other mythology, other storylines and continuities and stuff, he was always either known as a miner, or in some versions he's a gladiator, and like he had other designations, but Megatron was always the name he chose for himself. So that's where that comes from. And then, other characters, I guess they didn't need to go as deep into that, because you say jazz and it's like, okay, well, that makes sense for an alien race, I guess, because they have concepts of whatever that is. But
music is the universal language, Trent.
I suppose. All right, so like rolling through it, so you get a little bit of a prologue to the beginning of it prior to getting introduced to them and him sneaking into the archive, which he's getting like another info dump. It's all just it's
exposition. Exposition. Sure. The matrix of leadership is lost, and that's why Energon is no longer flowing, and that's why that they are now harvesting. They're now mining for Energon.
That's a weird thing,
which
too.
sets. But that's the table that's set for why our characters and where this society is at this point.
It is a diminutive society based off of their natural resources.
Another just hard-working coal mine in town. No different than Alien Romulus. It's just like, okay, go ahead.
Well, but that's an interesting perspective when you put it on it. You've got essentially what this movie is about like segregation and then oppression and like it's labor force versus like a patriarchal kind of society.
Sure, absolutely.
Seems. So like there is like some bigger themes to it inside of like essentially a kids movie where they're making like casual jokes about like killing people or killing other robots. It seems. Yeah. So I don't know. It's so. Like, they find the map, and then that map is supposed to lead them to where the Matrix supposedly is hidden, and then they stumble across the graveyard of the Primes. So that's an interesting thing too, is that saying that, so there's always a traitor through
You
the...
skipped the whole sequence.
Well, I mean, there's the train stuff. They can meet up with Alita again.
Well, they get on. They do the race.
Oh my gosh, the race?
Yeah.
Did the race really do anything for you?
The race,
like the pod race, essentially.
So I understand
and the
that
rules for it don't make sense.
Well,
I guess.
mean, again, I understand that, but it sets up a somewhat important moment, which is that they get to meet Sentinel Prime,
That's
who is
true.
held in a very high esteem at this point. To our characters who we're rolling with in this movie,
Well, they're
which
the
is
grunts.
Optimus,
they're the
and
lowest
Megatron,
part
right?
of the totem pole in their society.
They are just grunts. They go out. They're in this race thing. They kind of make a little name for themselves. They immediately, like, I don't see, and that's the thing. You don't know, like,
at that point.
We can tell Sentinel Prime, the way he's speaking, you're immediately tipped off to, like, oh, well, this guy's just the worst.
The stereotype in every movie was that you have an authority figure that kind of comes off as a little too nice or too smarmy, as he should, more than he should be, and you immediately, like question marks rise, and you're like, why is he so nice? There's no possible way anybody should be this, like, well regarded or whatever. So you already assume that there's something going on that you don't know. So whether or not you think you know what, at that point, in that moment, you already know, you yourself are kind of assuming that, okay, something's not on the level, or the way that he's addressing them.
Yeah, but even before that, I was like, they already tipped you off.
Okay,
like
there's something going on.
When you see Sentinel's first broadcast, it's like, oh, all right, I figured this out.
That he's just kind of a jerk, or
no, I figured out pretty much. Like at that point, I pretty much figured out.
Okay.
I had figured a lot of things out.
Like
just
real twists during this movie
so
at
to me,
all.
I don't feel there's any twists. So I'm gonna say, yeah, like we'll just speak candidly about it. You know what I mean? Just talk about it, like, because I mean, again, like, I don't think any twist in this movie is like a twist that will impact your viewing experience.
Well, it's even worse that because it happened before with literally the exact same named character in another movie.
Yes,
and it's it's not that it's bad storytelling or anything like that, and it does need to happen because there's always a traitor at some point in the mythology that
serves as a catalyst, right?
That serves for the downfall of the first part of their civilization and stuff, and ends up in kind of where they are. So, again, Sentinel being a traitor, because that's what he is, and especially in comparison to the previous ones, where he's always been like seen, and he's a fairly new character. G1 does not have a prime outside of Optimus. It's always, there are leaders, there's other people that exist, or other characters that exist that are supposed to have been in the golden age of Cybertron during their early years and stuff, but there's no other primes in like Generation 1, with the exception of Rodimus, and then that's just successor stuff. But anyways, so forgot what my point was. All right, so Sentinel is still fairly new, so you, as a character, he doesn't have like a predefined like role to abide into outside of being, this traitor kind of like stereotype and stuff. So as fans and stuff, you kind of know where it's going anyways, but the movie kind of leads you to believe that it's already going that direction anyways. But you do get the exchange of like the hero worship that like Megatron feels.
Absolutely.
And that he is already... See, now that's something that I kind of wish that they would have pushed a little bit more. So Megatron doesn't necessarily just look up to Sentinel. He looks up to like all the primes in general, because he's got the sticker.
They both do. Yeah, they both.
Well,
but,
I don't know. I don't think that Optimus does.
I think so. Like, because he's looking in those archives, man. Come on, dude. You're not in there.
Well, he's questioning on whether or not what happened to them and or, like, whether or not the story that they've been told is the real story.
Yeah, there might be more
He's
to it
already
than
a skeptic.
That.
I guess that's what Brian Pax's, like, characterization is, that he's a skeptic in the sense of, like, he knows that they shouldn't all be doing the same thing over and over again. You know what? This movie actually has very similar themes to literally the animated DreamWorks movie called Robots. Because it's the same kind of... Ewan McGregor is the character in that one. And it's kind of the same thing, where they're like stuck in their own, like, they are autonomous. They have a role, and they can't...
They're stuck as being cogs in a pointless machine.
Right, they can't deviate from that and stuff. It's kind of funny, though. But, all right, so... you get a little bit of that with Megatron's story, where he has this hero worship and he holds him in a higher esteem and stuff. But then there's also the like, he doesn't want to go outside of his lane. He wants to be just a part of whatever
he does believe in the system, right?
Yeah,
he trusts in the system, right, of like, if I keep my nose down and work hard,
right, I can move up.
I can get somewhere that's better than where I'm at.
Did you notice that they've got like a ranking or like some kind of badge that they have on, and he crushes it like later on?
Yeah.
I just didn't realize that it wasn't prominent really. It's just sort of there. It's like the equivalent of like the Starfleet pips that are on Star Trek like uniforms. And I'm just like, wow, that's such a weird detail that they put into it. Anyways, so you get that introduction. They find the map. They're supposed to go find the Matrix. They run across Alita again on this train sequence, which wasn't a bad sequence. How the heck does that track work?
Magic. Cybertronian magic, man.
I guess.
Cybertronian magic.
Why does it need a track if it could just fly?
I don't know.
It's creating a track as
why
it's
do any
moving?
of the roads, why are they doing that at all in this movie?
Don't know.
But they're doing it in this movie for whatever reason.
Visually, it looks kind of cool. The shifting landscapes and stuff. No. Did that not do anything for you?
I'm going to be completely honest. So, like, when they get out of the city, okay, it's a much better experience. Because when they're in the city,
it's like over-sensory overload.
There's no...
You don't have a gauge for anything.
There's no distinction in any kind of real architecture. Like, it's looks
kind of like going through the mirror dimension in Doctor Strange. It's just like layers upon layers built onto each other and stuff. I think the designs themselves are kind of the problem. They're different colors and stuff, but they all have kind of the same body types and everything.
It turns into just walls of color at times.
And it does.
Yeah.
But that's like one of the biggest differences, I think, in comparison to other media that they've been in, is that there's lots of varying types of robots. Like their sizes and stuff, and they all look the same. They're not all symmetrical and stuff. And like, I don't know. Their forms themselves as just generic robots, they're a little too cookie cutter.
They look like action figures, man.
Well, yeah.
They look like elbow joints, literally, it's like, that's an action figure peg that you've just animated in that thing's arm, right?
There's no car parts that are visually on them.
No, there's nothing mechanical in there it doesn't look like it's a mechanical thing. It literally just looks like...
hilarious in comparison to the Bay films, because they are just a cobbled together,
absolutely.
Just explosion of just parts and stuff where you don't know where anything is supposed to go, and this is like the opposite.
Feels very opposite. And I'm sure that was a choice, right? I'm sure someone was like, let's make this a little more basic, right?
Tons of fans have complained for years about the designs that they went. The Bumblebee movie got a little more closer to like the G1 aesthetic, which is more blocky and kind of like you see more of the car parts and stuff that's on them. But like this takes it a little too slimmed down and
too basic.
Yeah,
this is for me. It's too basic.
There's a line. There's the toy line that's Action Masters that they had done that was kind of like in the late '80s, early '90s, where they were trying to push it into more of a 3/4 inch like GI Joe kind of feel. They took the Transformers out of the Transformers, and they basically just turned them into action figures.
They're robots,
and like that's kind of what the style is, that they look like this.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of, you can kind of see that they're supposed to turn into something, but you don't know what it is.
Yeah. Right.
So, anyways, we're in the context of the movie. I guess this is where like Act 2 kind of takes place. This is like in the middle of it.
Sure. Yeah, I guess.
Because now we get the call to adventure.
Call to adventure.
This is they come across the graveyard of the Primes. They realize that they're all dead and defeated, and then the one that has survived requires a little bit of energon. That just pop into their mouths, which is the weirdest thing ever. That they eat these cubes,
right? Let me take this out of my body. Here, little guy, take a snack.
They've done it, but I mean, it exists in previous media. But they like show them drinking it and stuff. It's a liquid. Like that's how it's always been expressed. Is like energon is supposed to be a liquid and stuff. But for them to eat it like it's a candy is just so funny to me.
Yeah.
So he reactivates and he tells them the real story. There's a betrayal, that they were all destroyed and stuff. And then, but the big thing for me, so what I find is incredibly interesting, and I don't know if you got this at all. So like, there are certain, in other mythologies, there are Transformers that are inherently more powerful than others. And they're not just because they're chosen, but because they're either built that way or because they're like, they don't have like I guess there is equivalent of like a DNA or something that makes them a little more superior than the others. But these ones are like Prime, Megatron, to a lesser extent, like Bumblebee, the mainstays and stuff have like are more important than the others. This kind of like solidifies that because they get the cogs from the Primes.
Yep.
So all four of them already have like a more powerful
leg up.
Like I'm equating it to like version or a part of their species that comes from the original part of their species that's going to be more powerful than the others, I would guess. I don't know if that came across at all.
I mean, it's me.
Okay.
I mean,
because it makes them separate from everyone else.
It should make them right. Like, even though they go and they fix this, well, they do at the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah, that would make them still be unique compared to everybody else.
To other ones.
Yeah.
Which I like the idea that kind of Bee and Alita in that same sense is also like that too. Because I don't know, you don't care, but I care that he says specific names that he gives the cogs from the Primes that they came from to each of them. And he doesn't say who gets what, but I can equate it to, it makes sense to who they're supposed to go to.
Okay.
Because based off those Primes, what we know nothing in this new continuity, but in previous continuities and stuff, it's like, okay, that makes sense. So-and-so got this one, this one, this one, this one. So, like, going forward, if there's going to be any kind of, like, sequels or anything, which I would imagine there could be, this might play into that in some fashion, based off of, like, because Bumblebee has never been, or never probably will be, a Prime, but in other continuities, he's the leader. He's become the leader in some fashion. He's always been the rambunctious scout who turns around and is more brave than others and shows a lot more heart than others.
Right.
But also shows that he has a capacity to be followed and people listen to him and stuff. So that's an interesting concept, I think, just in what they've chosen to do for this particular continuity.
Right.
So, okay. So we go through that. We find out the traitor. We see the other aliens. Okay, so that's weird that he has to subserviate to them, and then he's having to work his workforce harder for that.
They don't want to do the work. The Quintessons, or
is the war over?
The Zachary Quintessons or whatever.
Zachary Quintessons.
Yeah,
that's Quintessons. It's really funny.
They don't want to. They don't want to spend the time.
Well, the war is done, I guess.
I think they feel it's mostly, I mean, other than, you've got the faction that we run into a little bit later. But, like, overall, the war doesn't really seem to be active.
When he gets exposed, he could have, his stance could have been like, I've stopped the war. We're no longer, like, at war. I did that. They didn't do that. I did. And I have,
the problem,
saved our society because of this.
But the problem is how he did it. Coming clean coming out of like, I sold you all up the river to stop this war, but also I benefited from it because I get to have this great cush life. Sure. And he's deceived them for all of these years.
Well, he's also
by going out and
not just deceived, but like removed a part of their anatomy.
Well,
that is
exactly to keep them in check,
them in line,
right? You know what I mean? So again, they were just.
So is he really a monster? Let's say
he's a pretty big monster.
Let's say this is super spoilers. We're going straight to the end here. But did you feel bad when he got torn in half? Because he kind of is sympathetic. Like he is literally crawling. He is defenseless. No? Really? Okay. Yeah. All right. I mean, I kind of felt a little bad. I mean, he's terrible, but like, it's brutal, I guess, in the context, I suppose. But no?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I was just curious.
Again, he was responsible for the murder of all of those Primes.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I say responsible, like, he killed some of them.
Well, directly.
He directly killed some.
Yes,
so for me, man, it's like, not that it always has to be eye for an eye or anything. Now, I think as you see that this is where another point where you're seeing this difference in where Optimus is still at and where Megatron is at, where Optimus is like, doesn't have to go this way.
Well,
and Megatron is full on at this point, like,
Pax
never
at that
again,
point,
right?
He's okay. So Alpha Trion, who's the surviving Prime, who changes into, I don't know if you noticed what it is, like.
What was it that he changed into during his little
like
fight?
A crazy
there?
like lion wolf with like a horn thing.
I kind of is like a rhino tiger.
I guess.
Kind of.
I mean, it had a horn of some kind.
It had a horn, but it was kind of tiger.
But like kind of
Lawrence
cool
Fishburne did great
at the same time, because you know that there's like wildlife that exists on the planet.
We've seen some wildlife at this point in the movie.
Turning into one.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just, I thought it was neat. So
I thought it was interesting that they don't really take time to show, like, they didn't really take any time to explain at all what they turn into, like, as far as like,
or why
they turn into the things that they turn into.
See, that's funny that you bring that up, because in other context, they have that's utilitarian. So like in other continuities, they are turning into things that is helping them based off of their job. So what they are able to do in where they have Cogs, or Cogs wasn't even a part of this in Generation 1. Orion Pax does exist in Generation 1. That evolution has been from the onset of Orion Pax was in a younger age of Cybertron, and then he evolves into Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
So, but his form dictated based off of his job or his position in society at that point. In this, it's kind of like, same goes for like, you know, if you were a ground-based thing or a flying-based robot, you know, there was a dip. That this is going back to that classism thing, because there's always been a part of it since the onset, and the flying robots were kind of like looked down on, you know, the ones that couldn't fly and stuff. There is a very classist thing. So Prime, in that moment when the truth is revealed, because Prime doesn't really change his stripes at all, I think, in this. He's curious, and he thinks that he's meant for better things and stuff, but once the truth is out, he's like, I was right all along, or I knew that there was something that didn't feel right, like we weren't being told the truth or anything like that. Megatron's the only one that like really has a moral clash of consciousness, or a clash of his perceived reality. You know, he has to deal with it. Now he has to deal with this change of whatever his belief structure was up until this point, and then think for himself finally, or make a choice. Like, he finally gets to choose. Like, and he's mad, obviously, but does that mean that, you know, is it just unbridled rage for being lied to? Because you get a little bit of, I guess, even during the race or during something else, that there is something that he is like an outward aggression, or is that not, or is that just reading into a little bit more?
I didn't feel they handled the breadcrumbs well enough. I don't feel they handled the breadcrumbs very effectively.
He's betrayed, and he's taking it as a loyalist, as a, you know, believer in that society and stuff. It does kind of make sense that immediately your hero worship, the thing that you were told as your whole belief structure and stuff, has been ripped asunder, and now you're told that you are lied to about that, and now you're. Is he justified? I'd say it's like kind of justified.
So I think that part of that is fine. I think what I'm saying is,
he wants vengeance at that point,
and I get that, and that, like, so that part of it checks the box for me. Mm-hmm. What doesn't check the box for me is when he's got Optimus hanging there.
Oh, at the end?
Yeah.
No, because all right, we're skipping way ahead, but like, no, it makes sense for what he's chosen in that moment. He is chosen to start anew.
Unlimited power.
It's there doesn't have to be Sith and Jedi anymore.
It's my new empire. I understand.
We can create something new.
I totally get it. The eyes turn red and everything.
He knows that Prime, from being his friend for so long, and has gotten him into trouble, and like gone through all these different motions and stuff to stand in his way from what either he wants to do for himself or where he thinks he fits into things. He knew that if he didn't let him go, that he was just going to oppose him again.
But if he says that, I'm cool with it.
I don't think you need to see it.
But what he says, which is, I'm done saving you, I'm like,
I
was like, no, wrong line, wrong approach. It threw everything off for me at that moment. Like, where a lot of things were working and I was good. Although, again,
couldn't have said something different, like I choose my own path.
I would argue
this will be the last time you stand in my way, or something of that equivalent.
Something like that. But I will say this, just to go broader strokes for where this might turn into. I think it was a big mistake to already break them apart from each other.
You had to have it. You had to have the factions. It has to. You have to create the separation that, like, because you can't.
You can do that in the next movie, though.
You have an entire Transformers movie that is just about Cybertronians and not Autobots and Decepticons.
But that's what it should be.
I can't sell toys like that.
Oh, sure you can. Absolutely. Then you get to sell them again in the next one. With slightly different paint jobs.
But we're talking even more generalized here. People know
the brand,
good and bad.
Look, I understand.
There's good and bad, and you can't. If there's a middle ground, they don't know. They can't understand the middle ground.
Well, right now, again, this movie is setting up for a war with the Quintessons.
We're assuming.
We assume. It makes more sense to have them fighting together.
And they may.
And I think they will. I do think they will.
Because if it's the nature of their own survival as a
people... They're going
to
have to... They can't go forward at all with that hanging over them, right?
All right.
So I get that.
So
but
we'll go to sequel speculation here. Let's work the rest through the movie, okay?
Okay, so that's fine. That's fine.
So they go on... They learn about the betrayal. They find out that the Quintessons are still around. Then they go back to... No, the camp. The camp.
Well, before they get to the camp, as part of this, just to make sure it's clear, as part of this reveal, they also are given, like you said, the ability to transform, which they haven't had up until this point in the movie.
Didn't realize that
so they go and they escape because they're getting assaulted and everything. And I just want to note something that happens after they roll down the hill. A little bit of fun happens and they have a kid moment. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They do their little battle and all that stuff. They're out of breath.
Oh, that drove me nuts too. So I leaned over.
They are panting.
I leaned over. No, it was before that. At the beginning of the movie. When
Orion
has the chip and he does the cartridge blow. I'm like, what's he blowing?
What's going on there? That's why I didn't think about the cartridge
Are they saying that they, for some reason, have to intake some kind of gas of some kind?
Again, it's a kid's movie. But those references are lost on kids, so they're pointed at us.
Right. No.
So it's like, and again, it's like
you're not supposed to believe it.
I just gotta think.
We're talking about the planet is a space god.
Right.
They're digging up the lifeblood of their own creator. Who knows?
I know it's
doesn't
a small
matter.
thing, but I was just like,
it is insufferable. It's like this is the equivalent of saying Matrix 4, the Matrix was a video game the whole time. Like, it's demeaning to the viewer in some regard.
Okay, so I had to get that off my chest there really quick.
No, it is funny, because to hear them panting, to hear them having anything that would resemble a human. Why do they have noses? Why do they have faces? Why do they have to blink? Like,
I don't know.
You know.
I don't know.
This is you're associating, but that's a whole nother thing I want to get into. Oh my gosh. You can't. So this
Are you sure this is the time to do it?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is technically the 8th movie in this franchise of just movies and stuff, not counting the other series and everything else like that. This is the very first one, very, very first one that has had no humans.
Yeah.
Which is the best thing that this series has ever done, as far as I'm concerned. But that was always the problem, was that either through the base stuff or through anything else, you always have to have that human kind of like entry point. Like, you have to either be able to relate to them or whatever other bullcrap that, like, storytelling apparently has told us their entire lives. So for them to express that way in more of a human way and stuff, that is essentially where we're supposed to have that entry point and stuff, I suppose. But did it change anything? Did you feel that, like, there's any reason why they would have to interact with a living human being to empathize more so with them? Do you feel more empathy for these specific main cast Transformers than you ever did with the Bay movies?
I felt more connected to Michael Bay's Transformers than these Transformers.
Why?
You
don't know anything about them. They're there. They're there to fight and shoot and
it has
tear
nothing
faces
to do
off.
with those human characters, other than they're fighting for us.
Not always.
Well, that's very true. No, I get you. And I won't argue that. But I'm just saying, we should save this for later.
Okay, that's fine.
Because again,
but I'm just saying that that's always been the problem, and that's always been the reason why we've always had to deal with more human garbage than we've had to need to see the actual robots and the emoting and stuff. Other than that, they're expensive and whatever. If you can build an entire TV show with CGI characters and stuff and say that it's too expensive to spend 5 minutes with a robot so that we can figure out what his story and actual cares and wants and desires are, then that's just absolute garbage to me. But notwithstanding, as long as you're saying that it didn't matter that this didn't have any humans in it,
I was able to the lack of a human presence had no impact on
nothing.
It changed nothing for
me, which always should have been the case. So, all right. Anyways, so we are in the story, they've changed. They've had the little gag moments and stuff. They turn into different things.
They end up at camp.
Which, did you understand what they... It's obvious they're the Decepticons because they're all the bad guys.
Yeah, they're
stuff,
pre-Decepticons.
Which is I'm a little...
Proto-Decepticons
I'm a little
at this point
irritated by that because... in a prehistory kind of before there's factions and stuff, there should be more of an integrated version of some bad guys are, the Autobots aren't just the miners, or the Decepticons aren't just the Royal Guard as they're said in this. But I guess that's how it's easier to not intermingling them, and where it in the context of the Civil War that erupts after all of this, or will inevitably.
Sure.
They're people. Characters choose sides. They don't all fall into one category or anything like that. The fact that Megatron creates an uprising and stuff means that all the oppressed characters, all the oppressed Transformers, Cybertronians, get to make a choice. They can follow him and fall in with his lot and stuff, and basically rise up against their own government, their own society and stuff to try and make their world better. But then, the old guard, the original society and stuff, they have their mainstays that are maybe they're very comfortable in their lifestyle and they don't want to buck any trends or anything like that.
Sure.
Those are characters that exist. It's not just oh, I'm going to fight for this side or this side. There's specific reasons why some of them choose.
Yeah.
So it's just funny that it's got to keep it simple. The bad guys are off on their own thing.
It's a kids movie, man.
But there are some things that are there that are a little more elevated that I kind of appreciated.
Sure, they went deeper in some parts than I thought they would, but at the end of the day,
did you know who he was right from the onset? Who was doing his voice?
Oh yeah.
You did?
All the voices I was on top of. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was Ham doing Sentinel though. That was the one. I for some reason thought it was Will Arnett.
There were similarities. No. I definitely. There were moments where I was like, is that Will Arnett? So, but no, I was able to sort that all out and all that eventually. But
so you meet the Royal Guard, which is Starscream and cronies, Decepticon cronies, and so it's Steve Buscemi doing it, which I thought was fine, and then they felt the need to tweak his voice.
They worked it a little bit,
and I'm I don't know if that's necessary.
Yeah,
because Starscream's always supposed to be a high pitch, annoying voice and
stuff.
But
sure.
Steve Buscemi
kind of does it on its own. You don't need to add anything to this. You don't need
no vocalizer or anything thrown into that just to emphasize it at all. But it seemed through only a handful of other dialogue that he has that for whatever reason it was just a temporary thing. So who knows? We'll see. But so you see Starscream, you see Shockwave, you see Soundwave, which was a really good gag for Bumblebee. It's one of the jokes that I really appreciated.
It was one of the better jokes in the movie.
Because it's true, there's a lot of waves in the continuities.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's this faction was the Royal Guard that was supposed to have apparently had their own falling out with how Sentinel was doing things, which doesn't matter because it's all the bad guys, so who cares? But this was you say that Megatron making the choice right then and there seemed really abrupt. This, to me, felt like it was very abrupt in this scene.
It is.
Where he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to throw my weight around because reasons?
I got power now. And that's the thing, is it's like, I think if the movie had taken a little more time, like, I don't know exactly where these moments and bits could have been, to show that Megatron was more of a guy who
he's not a leader at this point.
Well, he's not a leader at this point, but it was more so of a just like, I wish they would have given us a little more of a sense of a guy who just wanted something different, but didn't have the power.
He didn't have the means.
He didn't have the means to do that.
Right.
So now that he has these means, it's unlocked all of these things.
And that would make sense.
But they don't do that.
No, it's just that it's an about face from his previous belief structure. Now he wants revenge, and now he has the means to get revenge, but now he's also just adopted some followers.
And he's a little more power hungry, like, out of nowhere.
See, that's the funny thing, is that because in previous continuity, Megatron either starts as a miner or as a gladiator or sometimes both, where he's proven himself. He's proven himself as a lower standing robot that is then elevated himself through his own means. He's built his own. He's come from the ground up.
Yeah.
He's created his own, like, celebrity.
You can say
stuff.
You can say it.
He's a politician. He's essentially.
You can say it. He's Transformers Hitler.
Yeah, I guess.
You can say it.
I guess.
That's fine.
I mean, I don't know if he dabbles in painting, but who knows?
You never know. Yeah.
He would turn around and make a name for himself and adopt those followers who saw his perspective, his agenda as like an equality for everyone, not just for a few, but for everyone. Yeah. That was his platform in a lot of different media.
Yeah.
And so, like, they sympathized with that, and that's where he got his followers. Starscream, in some continuities, he's a scientist. He's not a warrior. He's not a guy his sniveling kind of like lackeyness comes from just his inability to be a fight,
right?
Or be a fighter, or anything like that.
He's weak.
Like,
and he doesn't want to fight.
All the major like Decepticons are not out and out fighters. They're scientists or something equivalent that they just fell into Megatron's lot because they provided him with like something that he didn't have himself. He was a bruiser. He was like a megalomaniac and stuff, but he wasn't technical. He didn't know, like, he wasn't a spy.
Sure.
He wasn't like a scientist or anything. So like for them to just lump all these guys into just saying, oh, yep, they're there. They're the bad guy. They're the distractor faction that is just, they're just out there in the wilderness, I guess. And they're basically all on the same page. I don't know. And then for him to wail on Starscream enough for everyone to
just fall in line immediately.
Like, I guess I didn't know that it was like strongest
or whatever.
Survival of the fittest was what their belief structure was in as soon as they leave.
Conan the Barbarian.
Right. Like, I guess so Starscream just beat up on everybody enough that he got to be in charge.
Yeah.
I don't know. That, I agree. That's probably for me the hardest one to accept, because it's like second act, third act's coming. We got to get the ball rolling. We got to start some of this, the Decepticons have to be here by the time we finish this movie. And
that's where I'm saying, like, they just had a little more patience. You don't have to rush that. You can even just have a faction of robots the Transformers out there, right? You know what I mean? And then you stumble upon them, and they are depth. They are the cannon fodder, more or less, that help you propel and get into your action, right?
Just say that they're there and they're going to help out and stuff. Don't have Megatron do anything other than him just walking away. He's singly focused and he doesn't cause any ruckus at all.
Yeah.
At the end of it, then that's when he's an army of one. He's literally fighting for his own reasons, and then everyone sees him rise up essentially to become like this powerful figure that then they decide to support, and he has no one. That's when then he starts getting followers and stuff.
Sure.
It's not like right from the onset, as soon as he just decides he has like a crazy delusion of grandeur that he decides to then just accumulate followers just cause. Yeah. Like, I don't know. But okay, so they follow the Royal Guard, Starscream's faction, kind of falls in with them. They develop a plan, which the plan is
to expose the truth. They want to show everybody the truth.
And then because that was, I guess, the recording that Alphatron gave them to then show the rest of the people that Sentinel Prime had killed the original Primes. and then there's this back and forth on who's carrying the message, and then they come up with like there's supposed to be a diversion, and then that plan doesn't matter because it goes off the rails anyways.
Sure.
So, but I think the plan originally was that Prime and Megatron and B was supposed to sneak in, and then Alita was supposed to take the train and take it off of whatever its pre-designated path was and then crash it into the building? Is that what the plan was? Or did that just happen?
Well, you skipped a bit. One of the bits is that Sentinel captures some of these people.
Oh, well, that's true.
Megatron is in captivity at this moment.
He knows...
there are other bots that are with him. Mm-hmm. B...
Yeah, he gets captured too.
B is one of the ones. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, so there are bots that are captured.
Well, they do develop the plan before that.
But they've developed the plan beforehand. Okay. Anyway, so they break them out, and like you said, the broad strokes.
Well, the big thing is that Sentinel comes to contact Megatron comes to contact with Sentinel for the first time.
Yeah.
And then,
well, no, this is the second time they've met.
But then he kind of tells him that he knows that he's false.
He punks him and just Sentinel
he's not
Prime just acts like
anymore.
A complete.
Which that whole bit is great. Like
that is great. That
Megatron
Megatron is just like, yeah, no, man, I'll never bow to you again, right?
So the thing we didn't touch on was the symbol, like the Decepticon symbol
logo
is based off of one of the primes, which is also kind of a major. It's another major loophole within the chronology of the mythos and stuff too. Is that the Megatronus Prime, as they call him there, is supposedly, they say it's his favorite, and it's one of the primes that was the bravest and toughest and blah, 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 whatever. And that Sentinel, after he killed him, took his transformation cog for some reason, I guess.
He took it for his own. No, he said he wanted that power.
So he could be the biggest and toughest, I guess? Okay, that's fine. But, so in other media and stuff, as being just like this movie, there's always got to be a traitor within these origins. Within the Prime's ranks, there was a traitor as well. There was the traitor Prime. There was the Judas of the Primes.
Sure.
That was this Megatronus Prime, who also became the Fallen.
I was going to say the Fallen. Right.
So that is where Megatron not only gets his namesake, but then also the whole of the dichotomy of Decepticons in general is where that is based off of, essentially. So for them to say that, oh, it's just the symbol alone, and that's why they adopt the Decepticon logo is okay, all right, that's... I mean, I know that they're trying to make it any more complex than they need to. Yeah. It's easier just to tattoo a sticker on the front of his chest,
I guess,
than there is to explain that there's another traitor on top of a traitor that we're already seeing and blah, blah, blah. It's fine. It's whatever.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of cool to see him. But then that also reinforces, why couldn't they have done it there where Starscream's there? The other Decepticons are there. Why couldn't you have left that moment until there where that's when all of them kind of
recognize Megatron because they see him take down Sentinel?
Well, no, he's standing up to him. He literally gets branded because of it. As a revolutionary figure, that's it's hitting all the marks.
Yeah.
Showing that this leader is going to do everything he can for us. We should be following him instead. But maybe you couldn't do that because of the context of the scene and stuff. You could have just, it's easy. You could have just been you just start I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. They just start standing up and Megatron or Sentinel just starts branding them all or something, or gets his troops to brand them, and then they all have it, or something to that equivalent, or just a single act of defiance spawns other defiance.
Sure.
And I don't know. So. Yeah, so they're captured, and then the plan is apparently happening. Prime sneaks in with the intention of getting the other miners help because they don't have enough for an army to go up against Sentinel. And so he goes back to where the miners are, which is basically the Autobots. It's all the other Autobots.
He goes to the locker room. Coach gives a speech.
Yep, he gives an inspirational speech
Coach
to get
Prime,
all of them.
Coach Prime, literally Coach Prime in this movie.
It doesn't. Actions speak loud. No, words speak louder than actions.
Louder than actions in this movie.
Outside of him looking significantly bigger than all the rest of these miners, they have no reason to believe that he is capable of fighting against this government. Other than he makes a really good speech.
Jazz is Hey, Prime, you been juicing? What's going on there, man? You look kind of different.
And he's like, "Oh, don't worry about that, guys. There's like no. At least he's doing.
You're all gonna look different in a few.
Right? Like at least they didn't do that. At least he didn't turn around and be like, "Hey guys, guess what? If you follow me, everyone gets one of these. And you can look like this, shiny new body and everything."
Sure.
Like, but at least they did keep it in the context of the character where he's inspiring based off of his own like ability to inspire, and you know, he's building them all up with his words rather than
optimism and leadership are the qualities that are like core qualities for Optimus
Alita uses
Prime.
that same line right before they get captured, and then he's like, I don't know if this is gonna work, and she's like, the one thing that you don't have, or no, she's like, I'm better than you and everything else, which I guess other than being the Rey Skywalker of this movie, and she can do everything better than all the boys can. Like we don't know why she's better.
She's quite the capable Transformer.
Sure. But like, well, she's got a position, you know, she's higher ranking than they are. She's
sassy.
Doing well. Like she is an independent
I didn't mind her.
Robot.
I didn't mind her.
She doesn't do anything wrong or really bring anything to the table at the same time.
Kind of there.
And which is
filling
fine.
out the group, right?
Which is also like I thought for sure, especially in this moment, but it's, you know, a kid's movie, and B, I would highly doubt that they would want to do this just because of where we are currently. But like Prime and Alita, especially in the original cartoon, they're an item. They are totally like boyfriend and girlfriend, or the equivalent of whatever that's supposed to be for like robots and stuff. So, but like there are kind of some seeds that where she kind of sees him in a better light.
Oh, I didn't take that
it's
at all.
Very
but
subtextual.
It'd be very subtle. Okay,
but
I
like,
gotcha. Yeah,
I don't know if that was the intention, or because it's playing back into normal social norms that I guess that's how things are supposed to be, or if it's they're trying to just abandon that entirely. Whatever. But like, so she says, I'm better than you than everything, but the one thing that you have that I don't have is basically like optimism.
Hope. Yeah.
Or, well, hope. She's like, you see, you're the most optimistic person I know. You see the best in everyone, or you have something to that equivalent of saying, like, she doesn't, I don't think she says inspire or anything like that. But the fact that he believes, which, like, in that moment, or anything we've seen up until this point, does he believe? Or does he,
I think so,
is this whole arc up until this point that he's supposed to be hoping for a better future, or hoping for better,
just following the feeling that there is something more for him out there,
to I guess what they have the ability to get for themselves, or that their society looks at them.
He's just got a feeling that there's something that they're all missing.
I don't know if that's hope though.
The hope is what drives him towards keeping the pursuit of that.
But no, hope would be the idea that there's something better, and you're constantly striving for that. So does he have that? I guess he does.
Yeah.
Okay.
This movie mostly wraps up. To get back to just wrapping up the story of this movie.
All right, there's a big old fight.
There's a big old brawl. Yeah.
I don't know. We transition between a couple of different set pieces. At some point, they I don't know. Sentinel has the upper hand, and they drop a building on someone, and then they're somehow they're in this tower, and then they're on the ground at some point. I forget how they get there. At some point, they get there.
Yeah.
And okay, so the big thing is that then you have the face-off. So it's Sentinel and Megatron are having their face-off, and Megatron gets to like throw out all his accusations and stuff, and said, you know, you lied to me, and you know, you took away my purpose, essentially, and
traitor.
Stuff. And then the inevitable thing happens where Megatron takes his shot. He has his opportunity to take his shot at it has a couple of chances to take out like Sentinel a few times, and Prime just gets in the way.
Yeah.
Right. So
he tries to keep him from doing it.
Right. So
he says we don't have to go down this road.
He jumps him a couple of times and tries to convince him to not, go through with having to kill him. He said, I don't think he necessarily says there's a better way. He doesn't say like we can lock him up, or we can like let the people decide, or anything. He doesn't say any of that. There's no alternative other than Megatron killing him.
I think that, well, no, I think you get the sense from Optimus Prime that it's like, you don't have to kill this guy. Like, we can let, there are other, he doesn't outright say, you know, like, he has to face face the whatever Anakin says. Line. Whatever Anakin says to Mace Windu. I don't. He
has to stand trial.
Yeah, or whatever.
The Senate will decide.
Yeah,
but anyways, so yeah, through whatever amount of opposition, he gets blasted because he jumps in front of
Optimus gets blasted by Megatron, right. And now we're going to talk about the storyline.
He takes the shot
we have not discussed throughout the whole podcast, but is certainly a pretty important element in this story.
Okay.
Why is the Matrix of Leadership gone?
Because it's made of dust. Don't you know that? They
I'm just saying,
that
we haven't covered that at all in this.
What? Okay. So, all right. Well, I was going to touch on it earlier, but like
in the flashbacks,
the Matrix apparently is what's giving the planet its lifeblood.
It's endless
supply, which has never been a part of anything else in the other continuities and stuff. But saying that it's gone means that there's no energon flowing regularly, that they have an abundance or anything.
It is
like
not
that.
Flowing like the salmon of Capistrano. Yes.
It's kind of bonkers. But in the flashback, Sentinel, when he pries it from one of the primes, it disappears on him.
Yeah.
Like it evaporates, essentially.
Because
it gets snapped away.
It says because nobody is worthy.
Not worthy of
it ascends.
Sentinel is not worthy specifically to.
Well, right. That's fair. I think they kind of allude. The Matrix disappears when there's nobody worthy of it.
The religious context that really comes into play, that I'm surprised your dad didn't go off the rails for this, because it's basically like the chosen one, but then also like the chosen one by their God, basically saying that you are worthy to carry this. And that is the equivalent of that. So in the larger context is that Megatron blasts Prime. He's got a big old gaping hole in him, and then he falls down a giant pit that just mysteriously appeared out of nowhere in the context of this fight. And then that transitions him all the way down through the source of Cybertron, which I'm kind of surprised. I thought that was kind of neat. Like, even when they're in the mining scenes, the constantly shifting nature of the planet and stuff, like, it's dangerous to probably go in there because it's a giant robot. Like, it's constantly moving around and stuff. So it's changing its landscape and stuff all the time. It would be hazardous, which is kind of cool.
That is.
So as it's going, is happening, and then he's chosen, essentially. Tell me what you thought the kaleidoscope of going through, like the way that was shot.
Talk about Optimus after he falls.
Yeah, so like it's back and forth. You're seeing the birth of like both of them essentially in those moments.
It's like parallel birth of their characters. Right. I understand what they're trying to do there.
Prime getting chosen by the Matrix and being repaired with crazy magic power. And Megatron essentially killing, dismembering and or bisecting Sentinel to the point where he is bathing in his robot blood.
Sure,
and
absolutely.
Becoming the tyrant that he will be forever known as.
Yes.
And, I mean, I kind of like that idea.
I didn't mind the execution of like it
happens
that part
at the same time.
I'm fine. I'm good with
it.
And
like, I mean, it's kind of like a little hokey, I suppose. But
it's fine. I think
like the way that it's edited
works.
And stuff. I was like, okay, out of all the things that gave me the feels of anything, that was like, okay, this is where it's getting like the emotional feels between this, because this is where you're seeing like them literally culminating in their stereotypical perspective or like mainstay
they are about to
take
on they are going to take on the forms that we know them as
so Prime gets some exposition of being chosen and gets shot up like a giant star straight back up to the surface of the planet, and then I guess that's where they come back into it and they have their final face off. And
okay, so Prime goes to the the spirit realm of the Primes, more or less, gets
well,
told.
He's in the core. He's essentially seeing the spark of the planet, and that's where it's communicating him through Lawrence Fishburne, through Alpha Trion, specifically about what it means to be a Prime in that moment, and which is kind of weird because it is inherited. Like the Matrix being inherited is what begets the next Prime, and the cycle is so. This is how it's supposed to go: is that the next Prime doesn't necessarily like choose. They're still chosen. Like he can't just hand it off. He tried that. Like in the 86 movie, he gives it to Magnus, but Magnus is not the next Prime. Even though he carries it, he's the Matrix bearer, but he's not the actual like leader, de facto like leader.
Sure.
It's Rodimus is the one that is like essentially the chosen one, but not at that moment. So by him inheriting it, he gets super prime powers. He gets to change his form for the second time in the movie, which I don't know. Did you notice that he's different? He looks different again.
Yeah, I noticed this. Yeah. The head's a little more closer to the proper G1
He's
look.
got fins and stuff.
Yeah,
and
you know
antennas.
what I mean? I noticed the subtle changes that they make to get him just even closer to what you would imagine traditional Optimus Prime to look like. Yeah.
So I can't remember if Megatron has his little like tirade speech and stuff at that point where he's basically just talking about like, you know, why everyone should follow him and there needs to be new leadership, and he's essentially just trying to get everyone to join him essentially. Yeah. And like breaking down the old and replacing it with something new.
Yeah, because at this point he's like unleashed his followers on Cybertron, like on the city, more or less, right? Yeah, that's weird
though that he decides to do that. He's like, tear it all down.
Right. Like, it's just like, what? Why these guys destroy all this infrastructure, right?
So like the Royal Guard, which are basically the Decepticons, they're the guys that are supposed to have been protecting like the city this whole time, and then they're just like, finally, blast it all. Just
thank goodness they're all flying jet bad guys too.
Right. Like no one can stand up against them.
Okay, right, yeah.
It's just weird in context. So, but Prime Megatron, like legit, we've been calling them this whole time.
Well,
but they've been known as G16 and Orion Praxis.
When people watch this movie, those are the names.
Well, sure. It doesn't matter what they're called.
Hey, I don't care what they say. Right. That is what people are thinking the whole time.
But that's when they have their actual face-off as who they're meant to be, and it kind of goes exactly. I don't even remember how like Megatron gets beaten. Oh, it's the axe. Like the lightsaber axe just comes out of nowhere, and it's like that weapon has always been like associated with Prime. It's even weirder because he only uses the once in the Generation 1 cartoon. Yeah. It happens in the very beginning of the series, and then you never really see it again.
Sure.
But it's always associated with him.
It is.
And then in the live action movies and stuff, he has his little sword things, which isn't the same, but it's kind of similar. And then, but this makes it out to be like it's literally like the final boss weapon.
Yeah, he's leveling up one more time. He's like leveled up one more time.
Like it spins around and crap that it's like blocking stuff, and I'm like, why does it do this?
Well, we didn't even talk about we didn't talk about the fact of like they kind of fumble their way through transforming, and then Megatron
gets a better handle on it.
Angry,
right?
That a cannon pops out, and they're starting to realize, there's even more to this than we even know.
But B does that too with like the hand, the arm blades,
once he gets
his
the
little
knife,
claws, his knife hands. Yeah. Is it just it's a part of their anatomy, or it's something that they always were able to do, or they just figure out that they can turn on?
Right.
It's basically like in the concept of what they can do as being transformable beings. You think that they can make anything. They can turn their bodies into whatever the heck they want. But there are predefined things that it seems like they can and can't do depending on what their model or how they're created. Whatever.
Nobody's there to teach them.
Well, no. I mean, they all kind of figure it out on their own. They
just kind of stumble into all of this stuff.
But so Megatron has his cannon. Somehow he gets another gun on his other arm somehow. And then like which is funny because, so I guess that's what it was. Prime doesn't have like a gun that he carries around with him regularly. So like, it's Megatron's like long range weapon versus Prime's melee weapons. And I guess that's why they had to soup up the axe and give it like some special abilities that we've never seen an axe do, I guess.
Like fire?
Yeah, like it can. Well, no, the fire came from his smokestack. So that was actually kind of cool.
Like shooting the
axe.
axe.
It actually can shoot. Yeah. Oh no, it did a Link. It did a Legend of Zelda thing.
Right. It's like
it's a full health bar. You can just fire projectiles with it.
Why not? Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
That was actually that was unexpected. I thought that was kind of neat. Actually, makes no sense.
Nah, I mean, again, it's a movie about robots that turn into vehicles, man.
They're aliens. It could exist. You don't know.
Yeah, that's fine. That's all right. That's fine.
They have their fight, and then Prime slices through the cannon, and I guess Megatron just gives up at that point because if he's got no weapons, like
Optimus is like, get out.
He's like, yeah, like I'm not gonna do anything to you because I guess we're still friends, even though we've had this like death brawl essentially.
Yeah, we had a death brawl. You technically killed me,
right? So,
but I'm gonna be the bigger man here, and I'm gonna you just get out.
You go.
Just walk.
You go.
Go on.
Tail between his legs.
Think about what you've done out there on the outside.
He takes his followers, which I'm surprised he even acknowledges as his followers at that point, and leaves.
Yeah.
And then Prime then turns around and he has his speech moment. Which is again in the context of all the other like media that's come before prior to the live action movies. There didn't need to be an Optimus speech at the end of every one of these.
But
it's kind of expected now.
But I like this. This is a trope that I like.
It's fine. Yeah. I mean, but that's definitely something that the Bay movies
they worked his voice a little bit too in this final.
Do you think so?
I did. I noticed.
Or is it just Chris Hemsworth doing it with a little bit more prestige?
He may have brought a little more bass in when he was doing it, but they definitely. I think they tweak it a little more at the end.
It could. Yeah. I don't recall specifically, but it's just, I don't know, maybe it's a different ADR session that they decided to record.
Knows, right?
I'd be curious to know if they did this as an ensemble or if they did it separately.
My gut says they did it traditionally.
That's a little unfortunate.
Yeah, that they don't. Yeah, you know how that goes.
They're just doing lines, straight lines.
They're just doing lines and doing it. Yeah.
So then he has to come up with the eponymous Autobot's name, which I don't know. Did you even catch why he decides to call that? It's usually because they're autonomous, but like I don't know what this one was necessarily.
I don't remember why.
He's basically sending his message because it's always a message at the end.
It's a broadcast
to the Quintessons because they're still a threat, I suppose. Now that they don't have Sentinel backing them and providing them with Energon regularly. But, like, he's developed his own force to combat that because I guess after he beats Megatron, he uses the Matrix to just start distributing transformation cogs to everyone all over the place again because reasons.
I found them.
They were there the whole time. You guys just didn't look in the right place. And they all get leveled up, essentially, at that point.
Yeah.
And so, like, he's got himself his traditional Autobot army, which, I mean, they're all minors. Like, why would some of them want to fight, I guess? Do they fight?
Well,
we never see them fighting.
Again,
even though they're supposed to be helping out.
Well, you see them, they all are on the jetpack things at one point with the train. You do see them for a moment. They engage, they show up and have a moment. Nobody gets like a hero
moment or anything.
No,
they
don't.
They're there. No. So you see a handful of like well-known established characters that show up later, but so that it closes with an Avengers running towards the camera moment.
Yeah,
which is fine. I suppose.
I guess
it's just. I mean, it's over at that point. You're like, okay, it's over. We don't need to see anymore. So it is what it is. Takeaways for the end.
Hold on. Before we get into takeaways for the end, let's talk about that. There is a mid-cred or post-cred.
Yeah, it's just the very end.
The very end. And I just want to make sure we touch on it, which is that it is Megatron.
Hey, there are Decepticons. They chose a name.
Properly forming Decepticons, properly being brandished with...
Do you even know why they decided on naming themselves that to begin with? It's always a big debate on like why they would be calling.
Well, fire away.
That.
I mean,
lay
it on me.
There's multiple Like the only reason that they exist is as the concept of a toy. They are deceiving us as humans through what their true natures are. But like for their own people, like they don't have to do that.
Yeah.
They're not hiding from each other.
Sure.
So like, but the context of previous chronology or previous mythology is that they choose it because, you know, they're being duplicitous, or their duplicity is going to reflect that of the duplicity of the previous regime or something like that, or like
evil for the sake of being evil.
There's always this well, no, that's the big thing. That's always the big change in like how I think that Megatron gets viewed. Megatron is not evil. He just has a certain point of view. He's not doing evil things in the context of everything that he does.
This is more General Zod versus Jor-El,
well,
right?
Maybe, but like everything that he's doing is for the betterment of his people. Yeah, he wants to be in charge and to rule and dictate like how his people turn around and propagate throughout the rest of their society. But he's doing it for that reason. He's not evil for the sake of evil. Like
he just wants to be the one in the chair.
Sure, yeah, he's calling the shots and stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're opposing him to getting to call those shots, then he's going to take you down. Like he will kill and destroy, you know, but it's means to an end, which is always, you know, which is a dictator mentality.
Yes.
You know, nobody's like really considers the collateral damage that's caused for when they decide to, you know, start oppressing their own people. But
yeah.
I don't know. But that's how he views it. But it's again evil with quotation marks.
Yeah, I guess. We do live in our society. I think there's a general consensus of if it's not democracy or freedom, then it's evil. Well, and in his approach where he's coming from, there is some freedom that he's offering, but the freedom stops at a certain point, right?
His motto has always been peace through tyranny.
Peace through tyranny. There you go.
It is peace, but it is of his own making and his own decision.
Emperor Palpatine style, if I've ever heard it. Right.
Whereas Prime has always been freedom is the right of all sentient beings, which is like, you know, autonomous freedom for all. Nobody gets to dictate, you know, any one person's freedom versus another.
Right.
So that's the opposing forces. But like, again, what he's choosing to do in the context of this movie, notwithstanding of destroying their own like leader and stuff, is he wrong for doing what he's been doing
in this movie?
Yeah. He's standing up for his people, for his own rights to survive. And
it turns into vengeance and not justice.
Personal vengeance. But at the end of it, he does try and convince either himself or for everyone else that he's doing it for the betterment of everyone.
I do believe that he believes that.
He's got his vengeance at that point. Now it's just megalomania that he's then trying to turn into, okay, we're adopting this power structure for a new power structure, and I'm at the head of this now.
Yeah, burn it all down.
Burn it all down, create something new.
Yeah.
But is he wrong? In the context of what we've seen up until this point, we don't know what society was like when the Primes were in charge, but up until the oppression that we've seen now throughout this movie and stuff, is he technically wrong for wanting that? He may go about it, you know, in the wrong way, in the wrong context.
He is wrong because, again, he's not even really concerned with exposing the truth. He just wants revenge.
No, he is, because he's taking the message back and forth. Him and Prime play back and forth with the message, and it gets destroyed accidentally. But, like, he was still going to expose him, I think. He just wanted his vengeance on top of that. Now, whether or not that vengeance was... No, he says he's going to kill him. Like, right at the beginning.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, yeah,
flip, like he says that he's going to kill him. So... Yeah,
so because of that, like, I mean, I understand what you're saying, which is like sometimes is there
morally just.
Sometimes is there an unfortunate means that have to be.
There is a means to an end. Yeah. That if we're going to equate it to our own history,
if you didn't have Optimus there, then Megatron would be the guy in history that they'd look back on and be like, he just did what he had to do in the moment. But thank goodness he did, because he got us out from that oppression.
Well, it's
replacing
unfortunately one dictator with another.
He's just taking that oppression for what will eventually be his oppression, because now he's power hungry.
Right. It may be freedom and revolution in the moment, but as the dust settles, it's just replacing one system with another system.
Yeah.
So yeah, but okay. So with that, how that ends, if there's a sequel, which I would inevitably think that there would be a sequel, what would you see? You say that would be potentially a war that would go on.
A sequel for me.
Like, what more?
I mean, look,
the
obvious sequel that it's going to is them fighting the Quintessons or whatever they are, right? Like, I assume it will be done under a shaky alliance between Optimus and Megatron, right?
Right. What do we have to gain from that, though?
Just getting those occupiers off their planet.
I mean, if it's just to create another Transformer for the movie, for the sake of another Transformer movie, but like this being a prequel still and propelling it unto an inevitable conclusion, because the inevitable end point of this would be
Cybertron falls.
Cybertron is a husk. They have to leave, and they leave with the context of going out to find a new home or a new energy source or something like that, which inevitably brings them to Earth. That's the whole point. Yeah. So,
I don't know. Does it have to be that? We've seen that.
This got to turn into a cars and trucks somehow. Currently, they're not real cars and trucks.
Well, I'm just saying, to me, I don't see any value in that.
If there would be a crazy change and bucking the trends and stuff, and you kept it entirely on their civilization, or they go someplace totally different.
And I think they should.
Cool.
Because
that'd be totally changing how I've, for my entire life, thought that this franchise is supposed to work.
What's the value in going back to a point where you're now doing CG human characters in this animated style?
We'll never get to there. But that's how it will end. You get 3 movies out of this, the inevitable end of the last movie.
And you're saying it ends and they're hopping on the arcs to get out of there?
They hop on the arc in the Nemesis, and then they're taking off through space to what their inevitable destination is. At best, you see them landing on the moon. You see them landing on the planet or crashing onto the planet in 65 million BC or something to that effect. That would be, I would imagine, the inevitable conclusion of some form of trilogy to this.
I don't want that.
Well, I'm just saying that's how it would potentially go. I get standardized.
But what do you do? See, that's my problem with the path that they're already taking, which is so we spin the next movie, you take out the Quintessons or whatever.
Sure. So it would be, that's easy, because the next movie would be them fighting the Quintessons on their own terms with each other. It's a unified or semi-unified, like Cybertron, their own race going up against their oppressors. They're the alien oppressors. And then the third one would be the Civil War. It's them fighting each other.
Okay.
Because whatever bad blood would have then still...
That's as excited as I am about that. Okay.
I mean, I'm totally in the opinion that, yes, if they changed things up and totally took it in a different route, cool. Let's see what that can do. If we're going to talk about no Jedi and no Sith, no Autobots, no Decepticons, I don't know what that looks like. I'm curious to know what that looks like.
But that's what I'm saying. So even for you, I'm the casual here, right? Are you really interested in watching the Autobots and Decepticons fight it out on Cybertron
that's how
again?
The nature of because we don't know what that looks like. We don't know. We have inklings. The Civil War lasts millennia, lasts thousands, if not millions of years. Their lifespans are a blip to us, or our lifespans are a blip to us.
Yeah, but buddy, they're not going to cover that in one movie in a children's trilogy.
But time progresses. You jump however many years in time, and then you just say it's been blah 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 however many years, and then you have a battle hardened characters that have seen war for thousands of years that then are at the late stages of it or something to that effect. The War for Cybertron games are show that in spades, because they're literally in the middle of it and they're in the thick of it or coming to the end of it or whatever.
Right.
So Do we need to see that? No, because we've seen some bits of it, but not the entirety of it. I can guess that there'd be some like touchstone things that may need to be referenced before that happens. But like the nature of it being a prequel, it would inevitably.
Why do you keep calling it a prequel?
Well, because it's the origins of it.
But that would just mean it's the first. That's the beginning.
And then I would assume, again, based off of how it's existed in the past, that we would inevitably lead to some culmination being that they go to Earth. Because in the context of the entirety of the mythology and stuff, the Decepticons lose because of us. Megatron chooses to come here and adopt our world to further his military machine, right. And we are the undecided factor for the Autobots winning and succeeding against them, because they were at a stalemate for millions of years. Like their resources were slowly getting consumed and stuff to the point where no one had anything. They were literally throwing rocks at each other, and like we are the undecided factor in that. So that's where they inevitably end up winning in some variations of the mythos and stuff.
So the humans that you loathe so much in these movies are kind of the most important factor in this.
In better versions of continuities, in the Bay films, they are there. Oh man, it drives me nuts that they could take them out with like AR-16s.
Don't go down this road. We're not going down this road. We're not going down this road.
Disgusting. But that, again, if that's where they're going with. Now, if they tried to do something totally different, or they ended in a totally different way where it's still like undecided on how it potentially could end, or they do 2 more sets of movies or however many sets of movies where it's literally like them gallivanting around the universe, coming across other things, cool. That's fine. I'm all for that. Leave the inevitable human-based stories with the live action stuff, which is inevitably going to happen. But I don't know. It's rich with different characters, different perspectives, different personalities and stuff, and like things that we haven't seen. You haven't seen certain characters, like takes on these characters yet in any kind of form, whether it's live action or otherwise, other than other specific media that like could get times to shine, and you could have standout characters outside of the mainstays, the Prime, the Megatron, the Starscream. You know, that's what I want more than anything. That knowing that there are really, really good characters that exist within this lore that could be brought to the forefront and be more impactful for newer generations, or just people that don't know that they exist and stuff. And that's the thing that I always want from any of the movies and stuff. It's like, it's not just seeing a new car that gets to be a new character that's in it for like 5 seconds and then gets thrown away because it's not important to the major storyline or anything. There's reasons for why some of them do what they do, and why some of them are the way they are. And that's cool. It's just unfortunate we never get to see any of it.
Do you get the sense that this movie is even setting up the framework for any of that to happen?
Well, you'll have, because like any beginning of a movie, you expand on your cast, so you'll inevitably have the main actors and then however many new ones end up taking up new roles and stuff. That's just the nature of having sequels. Like, you don't get sequels that are literally the same characters over and over again every time. Well, not modern based stuff, but it depends on what franchise we're talking about here.
All right.
Trent Davis, here's today's surprise. Trent Davis, you're not 25. Trent Davis, 1 more year alive. Marge Simpson, really big beehive. Sorry, Trenton, hard to find the rhymes. Big robots, he likes Mr. Prime. Happy birthday, no cash for gifts to buy. No money, a bad cousin am I. Trent Davis prefers Wally to Johnny 5. Like Star Wars, I like number 5. One more time, you're not 25. Could write more, but I'm out of time. Happy birthday, hope this made you smile.